What's up everyone? I'm Christine from christineon.com. So if you're thinking about starting a WordPress website and you're a total beginner, you might have a few questions. Things like, should I use WordPress.com or WordPress.org? Or maybe people are telling you to use a self-hosted WordPress website and you're wondering, what is that? And you might also be wondering, how can you make money from your WordPress site? Well, in this video, I'm going to answer what I think might be the most commonly asked WordPress questions that beginners might have. And since we've got a lot of ground to cover, I'm going to divide this video into two parts. I'm going to try to keep this as succinct as possible. We'll see if I'm actually able to do that. So let's dive right in. Let's start with the basics. What is WordPress? Well, WordPress is a content management system that you can use to create your own website. With WordPress, you can create a blog, you can create an e-commerce site, you can create a site to go along with your podcast or maybe your YouTube channel, and you can also use it to create landing pages for growing your email list or selling a digital product. And the beauty of WordPress is that with the right tools, you can style your site to your own liking, and you can do it yourself without having to hire teams of designers and programmers. If all you've got is you and your computer and maybe $15 or $20, then you can get your website up and running today. Question 2, what's the difference between WordPress.com and WordPress.org? So WordPress, notice I didn't say .com or .org, just plain WordPress. It's actually just software. It runs on a computer just like any other program, but WordPress.com is a web hosting service specifically for WordPress sites. It's an all-in-one service meant to make setting up your website as easy as possible. WordPress.org is a place to get the WordPress software, which you can then upload to your chosen web host. But I have to say, you probably won't need to do that because most of the popular web hosts these days already have WordPress available, and all you have to do is install it, and that's usually pretty easy. Most reputable web hosts these days have some kind of tutorial or easy install wizard to help you get WordPress up and running quickly. Question 3 is WordPress free. So this has the potential to be a little bit confusing because it depends on which WordPress you're talking about. The WordPress.com all-in-one service has several different plans that you can choose from, the cheapest one being free, the most expensive one being $45 a month. The free plan is very, very limited, and I would say it's really only suited for people who just want to play around and learn the basics of WordPress. Now, if you choose to go the self-hosted route, which means that you would choose your own web host, I recommend SiteGround, that's what I use. So if you go with self-hosted, the hosting won't be free. You'll definitely have to pay a fee for that, but the WordPress software is. And you can either download it for free from WordPress.org, or you can just use the version that's provided by your web host. Now you might be wondering, wait a sec, what's this self-hosted stuff? What does self-hosted actually mean? Okay, so a self-hosted WordPress installation is one where you have installed WordPress yourself. You choose your web host, like I said, I like SiteGround, and then you choose to install WordPress from a bevy of other content management options. You might see ones called Drupal or Joomla. Now, many years ago, the term self-hosted referred to any WordPress site that was not hosted on WordPress.com. And that's because WordPress.com was the only company that offered hosting in conjunction with the WordPress software, like as an all-in-one package. But these days, there are lots of other services that offer that exact same service, so that definition doesn't really hold anymore. So WordPress.com, because it is specifically for WordPress sites where hosting and the WordPress software are bundled together, and you could not choose a different content management system even if you wanted to, so that would not be considered self-hosted. Instead, WordPress.com is what's called a hosted solution. So hosted is an all-in-one bundle. Self-hosted allows you to choose your web host and your software independently. So which one is better? Self-hosted or hosted? Well, my personal opinion is that self-hosted is better. With a self-hosted WordPress installation, you will have the freedom to do what you want with your site, meaning you can install the themes you want, the plugins you want, you can put ads up, you can sell products, and you can do all of this using the tools of your choice. Plus, you'll have access to your WordPress database, which could come in handy if you need to make any manual fixes later on down the road. With a hosted solution, and it depends on the company, but generally speaking, hosted solutions have more than one tier of service. And so the cheaper tiers have limited functionality, meaning you might not be able to use certain third-party plugins, you might not be able to use SEO, you might not be able to monetize your site. And the expensive tiers might give you the same amount of freedom that a self-hosted installation would, but generally they're more expensive than just doing a self-hosted install. So you might as well go with self-hosted and have all the freedom that you want to do whatever you want, and then you can do it all for a cheaper price. Next, what do I need to get started? Well, for a self-hosted WordPress installation, you'll really only need two things: a domain name and a web hosting package. You can grab a domain name at NameSilo.com, and for web hosting, I definitely recommend SiteGround. I do have a video on setting up NameSilo and SiteGround, which I will link to up here. And by the way, if you're on the hunt for a great .com domain name, I recommend checking out leandomainsearch.com. I'll put links to everything down below in the description box. For a hosted WordPress installation, it is possible to get your site up and running without a custom domain name, so if you're not ready for that, no worries there. All you would need to do is to sign up, but this does mean that your domain name would end up being a WordPress subdomain. So let's say you wanted to start a site called Teaching Gymnastics. Well, your domain name would end up being teachinggymnastics.wordpress.com. Personally, I think it's much better to just go ahead and get the custom domain. It'll be shorter, it'll be easier to remember, and it'll make your brand look a lot more professional. Alrighty guys, this video is getting a little bit long, so let's take a break here. To continue on to part 2, click on this link right here.